You had to sign to say that you were okay, that you might die, but you were really poorly. You called me one day to tell me that you'd poo blood. I probably did get slightly obsessed. Yeah, it just felt like I'd been hit. Yeah, I really did struggle with that.
The whole box of biscuits in front of me, and I was just like, Mum's like, don't eat too many, you'll poo, don't eat too many, you'll poo.
The Erin that we had the year before back, which was never going to happen. He wouldn't accept that there was something wrong with you.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
What is it like when your once healthy daughter starts to poo blood overnight? When your life suddenly becomes hospital appointments and you are made to grieve what you thought would be your child's future? Today's conversation is with my mum and her experience being a parent of a chronically ill child. You are listening or watching a conversation with Erin, with me, Erin. Hi, welcome back. In today's episode, you are going to meet my mum, i.e. my best friend, sorry Kira. She has always been that person for me. She's always been my rock, and I think, speaking for myself, I think I've been hers. My mum is the hardest working person I have ever known. She is so successful in every single area of her life. She always has been an inspiration to me and continues to be, and has always been my emotional backbone. It's always felt like us against the world, even though we have my dad too. She's a complete trailblazer in her industry, I will say. She might not like me saying that, but I believe she's a trailblazer. She's such an independent boss bitch. It's the only way I can describe my mum. Like, my mum's such a boss bitch. Like, she's an icon. But today we are talking about me, obviously. And it's a very, very raw and honest conversation. I appreciate my mum so much for feeling comfortable enough and putting herself in that position, because it's not easy. It's not easy to speak so emotionally and openly on the internet to a camera. It is for me, but it's because I love doing it. This is a little thank you, Mum. Thank you for doing this for me. And we speak about my experience and her experience of being a parent of a chronically ill child. I really hope you can take something from this episode. It's such a special one to me, and I really hope we covered everything, and I hope we gave each little part of the experience enough credit and time that it deserves. If you have any questions, leave them below. If you want to see anything from me, let me know. And I hope you enjoy this episode.
So, as a bit of a backstory, in 2019, I've done a podcast on this before, it will be linked below, but I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease. We've actually done a video before, haven't we?
Have we?
Yeah! In COVID. But I think it's really important to speak about the family's perspective, because as much as I go through it, I think it's almost sometimes more difficult to see family members suffer when you're quite helpless. Yeah, we're just going to speak about your experience of being my mum.
Oh, what an experience.
I am going to do like a whole update of like where my life's been the last few months, but I've not been very well with Crohn's again. Yeah, so it's kind of been brought up back into all of our lives again, I would say, where it hadn't needed to be. So I think there's no really better time to do this than when it's very prevalent for us all. I also want to disclaim that as a family, we find humour in quite dark things. So if we do laugh at anything or we make jokes, it's because it's funny to us. Like, we're not an easily offended family, and it's almost our way of coping. What was I like as a child?
What were you like as a child? You was a funny child. You was very chatty as a child. Very, always very headstrong. Always very opinionated. I think right from quite an early age had quite a lot of empathy for others. Very sensitive, which didn't always play in your favour.
No.
But I think ultimately being sensitive can be a really positive personality trait. But I think when you're a child and everyone's trying to find their place in the world, it's not always seen as such. Yeah, you were a really, really easy, good child right from the day we brought you home from hospital.
My childhood, apart from the broken arm, I was pretty healthy and didn't really have any challenges.
No, you weren't a sickly child, far from it. I mean, let's say you broke your arm when you was 10 and that was an absolute living hell for a few months. And yeah, as a baby, you squeaked because your larynx hadn't developed properly, but that resolved itself within your first year. So no, you wasn't a sickly child at all. You was rarely off sick.
You say that though about like when I squeaked as a baby, that was never a massive thing, was it?
No, it wasn't.
I was clearly there's something wasn't right, but it was never like we've never been a family, I would say, from my opinion, to panic about sickness or ill health.
No.
But then we've all been quite fortunate to have never, well, I know I definitely haven't grown up around anybody with a disability or a long-term illness or condition, or we've never really had that.
No. I think the only thing that probably, we've ever had, fortunately, has been kind of as parents, my parents, dad's parents, your grandparents have got elderly, and then it's just old age, really.
Yeah. Skipping forward to when I was 16.
Mm-hmm.
So 2019, I've done a whole podcast on like my story and my experience. This is all about how mum experiences it as a parent and what she sees and things that you may see and remember that I don't. In February of 2019, I started to experience pain, and I guess there was one night I went into you and Dad, didn't I?
Mm-hmm.
And I guess you can. What was that like for you? What was your experience?
Yeah, so obviously from memory, you hadn't been well for a few days, experiencing this pain. I think as well from memory, you wasn't 100% sure whether you'd pulled a muscle from working out. But it wasn't going away and it was getting worse. And then, like you say, you came into us one evening, and as you've already stated, we're not dramatic when it comes to health. If anything, we might be a little bit the other way. Not ignoring things, but just, sit it out, we'll see how we go.
We use medical attention as the very, very last resort.
Yeah, so for you to come into us that evening and then for us to be in A&E not that long later, I think Dad and I must have felt that there really was something not right.
Mm-hmm.
And actually the level of pain you were in wasn't okay for you to be in that much pain, because as a child and going into obviously becoming an adult, your pain threshold's always been pretty good. I mean, we know that from when you broke your arm and how you dealt with that, with the pain, and they were amazing. I mean, I think when we got there initially and it was sort of stated that you would no longer be treated as a minor, you would be treated as an adult, I have to say it scared me a little bit, because there's just no way I could leave you because you were still a child.
Yeah, actually, what was that like? Because where I was 16, the lines are so blurred,
mm-hmm.
and with being a minor and being an adult, and even though I guess I think in a lot of ways I'm mature, I think especially then I'd never.
It's scary, isn't it?
Like that. So what is that like as a parent to go, she's still young? Like, I look at 16-year-olds now and I'm like, oh my god, you're babies.
Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously at that time we didn't know what we were dealing with.
Yeah.
We didn't know whether you were going to have to be kept in hospital or anything like that, but it did go through my head that if you were to have to stay in hospital, and I guess it took me back to when you broke your arm and we was in hospital for a few days. I was with you every night, and to leave you, in my head was like, I don't know. I think not that I wouldn't be able to do it, but whether you would be okay with that. Yeah, so, and then obviously they said you was going to have a blood test, which you freaked out a little bit at, which I find hysterical now, considering how many blood tests you've had since. And again, I can just remember being like quite mother hennish about the whole thing. No, you can't take it from her left arm because of her scar tissue where she broke her arm. You must take it from her right arm. But your body decided different, and you couldn't take it from your right arm.
So then I went through the whole A&E procedure, got examined, got taken down to... I don't really remember.
I don't really know, to be fair. I know we we went through to one bit, and then in there, because they got your blood test results back. Hello, Bubba, you come to join us. They gave you your blood test results back, and they said like your liver function was really high.
Oh, they said that in A&E?
Yeah, in like the second bit that we went into where they'd given you pain relief as well.
We come home, we got discharged to come back the next day to have a scan. I was okay when I went home, and then I very quickly remember not being okay. What was that like?
I think they were thinking at one point that it might have been appendicitis. They were thinking that it perhaps was maybe gallstones, which is really unusual in such a young person. Albus farted.
Yeah, I
That's
saw that too, and he just smelled his own bum.
So they were kind of like, it could be this, it could be that, because I guess the pain was kind of generated around your torso as opposed to just your stomach, because you had it up in your shoulder as well, didn't you? Obviously, when we took you back the following morning, which was to have the scan, and I can remember literally driving down the road and Dad was going over the bumps, and every bump was just like excruciating for you. So that was really worrying. I had the scan and the scan showed nothing. So that was almost reassuring.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, we still didn't know what it was. And it almost felt like when we went back to the room and waited to see the consultant, it almost felt like they didn't really know what was wrong, because they said that it was a virus that would last about 10 days and you kind of just had to ride the storm, really. But you were really poorly, like really poorly. You didn't get out of bed, barely. I can remember even having to wash your hair. Ultimately, it ended up being about 10 days.
When you don't know what it is, you're told it's a virus. All we was given was codeine and
pain relief. But you'd have moments where like you couldn't even eat like a little piece of toast without being in excruciating pain. I don't think you got up for days. And then we had to go back and see Dr. didn't we?
Yeah, we went to see my GP.
So that day you got up, you got dressed, and your clothes were like literally hanging off of you. You were sort of like quite hunched over like a little old lady. That was quite heartbreaking to see that, because she was just so frail, and that was in such a short period of time that had happened. He weighed you and you'd lost nearly 2 stone in weight in that period of time. But after that, you were all right for a bit.
What was it like when I was kind of okay again after going through that?
I think, again, because I don't dwell on things and I don't worry about what's not there, it was just kind of like, yeah, okay, the doctor must have been right, it must have been a virus, yes, it was awful, but you now seem to be pretty good again.
When you're going through something like that, it becomes a blur.
It does become quite blurry.
We don't really remember what comes first, because there was periods of like constipation and diarrhea, and it was all a bit random. So at some point we went back to the GP, and then after going back to the GP, I speak about this story in the podcast episode that I did, but I pooed blood for the first time, and I think I called you. Do you remember that?
How I remember it, you was on some sort of school.
We were looking at universities.
Yeah.
School.
Yeah, and you had a KFC for lunch, which, to be fair, is weird because you never really ate that anyway.
It's the only thing that was there.
And then that day, you just kept pooing. Like, you had really bad diarrhea. I think you got home from school or home from that trip, and you went to the toilet something like 8 times. So yeah, we'll see how you go over the weekend. If you know better on Monday, because of what had happened a few weeks prior, we'll go and see Dr. So that's what we did on the Monday. He stated then that he felt, with the blood test results that you'd had at the hospital and all that stuff, that there was a potential that you had an IBD. He said it then. And then I think it was at some point after that, not long after that, yeah, you called me one day at work, I think, to tell me that you'd pooed blood.
As a parent of a child who has been relatively healthy, what is that? Because when we hear poo blood, it's normally...
I didn't ever think that it was cancer, ever. I know it went through your head, because I think from when Dr. stated IBD, and to be fair, he also stated more likely colitis than Crohn's.
We were set on colitis, weren't we?
So from that point, I got obsessed with finding out everything I possibly could about colitis and IBDs. Therefore, when you phone me to say that you poo blood, I guess I probably wasn't overly surprised.
With you researching it,
yeah,
because I remember that a lot. Like whenever anything was mentioned, you'd all you'd do is research.
I think knowledge is always power, I guess, except for when it comes to something like this, because it doesn't change it. But I think having an understanding of stuff always helps. I think I'd probably did get slightly obsessed with needing to know everything about it, reading different case studies and, what causes it, what helps it, why does it happen, and there is really no answer as to why.
It almost to me feels like you were trying to take control in a situation where you had no control.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's nothing worse as a parent than having a child that's in pain in any way, not being able to do anything to help. Because I remember feeling like that as well when you broke your arm. And as much as she was really brave and stuff with that, it was still really, really hard because she was in an awful amount of pain, and then it continued because of the operation not being performed quite as it should have been, and everything that happened thereafter. So it's just trying to do everything you can in your power to make that better in any small way that you can. And I think understanding your condition, which obviously we still didn't know what it was then, but suspected we knew what it was, understanding it and trying to find something that's going to help it. So even just the little stuff like, now I don't know if you remember this, but obviously while I was waiting for the tests and everything, is going on a low fibre diet and stuff like that. Oh, we did that because I'd researched it, and will that help? And it did help. So it's kind of trying to find the little wins really that help. But I mean, obviously that was a lot of years ago now, and we understand it very differently now to what we did then.
That whole situation itself of being referred for something was completely new to us, and what our experiences had been in the past. Thank God, we're very, very lucky.
Yeah.
It was, but we'd never kind of ever as a family gone through anything like that.
No.
I want to quickly say what you said about the food. If you don't know, I have a TikTok, I'll put it on the screen now. I'm talking a lot about Crohn's at the minute because obviously it's very prevalent in my life at the minute, which we will come on to. But I also want to say you got me to Crohn's and Colitis UK, and you don't even have to be diagnosed with an IBD to get this, but they have a pack. And in that pack you have like an information booklet, you have a can't wait card, you have a key to use disabled toilets, and it's kind of like everything you need to help you feel as comfortable as you can as you're trying to operate the world with this new body and this new kind of existence. And you got that for me because you'd clearly done research and found it while I was waiting for the referral. It's incredible and it helped me so much. So I just want to say I'll try and find a link for it, and if I can link it below I will.
Yeah, I mean obviously, the internet gives us such it's the World Wide Web, isn't it? So there's so much information out there. Yeah, it was absolutely invaluable at the time. I mean, I don't do it now. I don't need to now. I live with it with you now. I might research things like recently where you've been put on new medications and stuff. I will obviously look at that, but Crohn's as a whole, I don't do it now. But God, yes, I was obsessed because it's how I dealt with it, I suppose.
It was quite consuming.
Yeah, very. It was incredibly consuming because I don't think that's any different to now and how you've been recently. It's like my first, I think I'm hyper aware during the night. I can probably not so much now, but like if you are up in the night on the toilet or getting medications, I'd kind of, she okay, like almost like you're a baby again. And when I'm at work and I've left before you've woke, it's like, oh wonder how she's going to be today. So it still is like that, and it certainly was then. I mean, it was just, it consumed me. How are you? What's happening with your body today? I needed to know, you know, are you putting blood still? Or how many poos have you had? What have you eaten? And it's, you know, you're an adult, but when you're going through the flares of Crohn's, yeah, I kind of still need to understand all of that.
Why do you think you feel the need to know all of that?
I think it's just being a parent, Erin. I don't think there's anything more than that. It's not a conscious thought to think, oh God, you know, if it got like next stage worse, that I'd need to be able to tell the doctors all about it. It's not any of that. I think it's just that ingrained needing to know
If I'm okay.
Yeah.
Doctors referred us
As an urgent
as
referral.
an urgent, and we found out it was going to be quite a lot of months.
I think it was 5 months.
Yeah.
Before you was even going to see a
Yeah.
gastroenterologist.
And fortunately, which we'll get on to, my appointment got moved forward. But I want to just quickly look at the months where we had kind of no contact with anyone. And it was just this new illness that we didn't know what it was. It was getting worse. Is there any moments, any periods in that blur that stand out to you? Or
I think probably the period of time that I have most clarity on was when we went to Prague on Hindu.
okay.
So before and after and during. So I can't recall what pain relief you were on then. I don't know whether they'd given you codeine. I can't recall.
No, it was what you could get over the counter. I think we had some codeine left over.
But we it was like saving it, wasn't it?
It would be like
for that. Yeah, when it was really bad. Yeah.
From what I can remember, it was just
paracetamol. The morning that we were going, you was clearly anxious about it, because obviously who wouldn't be when you're pooing constantly, and you're going to be flying. And obviously, you know, your first hen weekend away with a load of adults, you were still only 16 then, I think. But the morning, I didn't think you was ever going to come out of the bathroom, and you kept saying you felt really sick, which nausea and vomiting wasn't something you've ever really experienced with Crohn's.
No.
I was just like, oh God, are we actually gonna go? We did it, and then it was like airport, right, what are you gonna have for breakfast? Because it was an early flight, wasn't it? That whole weekend, I think it was a nice weekend. We didn't do everything that everybody else did. Mostly we did, but then it was also like finding stuff for you to eat and drink. And at that point, we were very much of the view that you couldn't really have fizzy drink. But getting like just a squash, not a juice, not like an orange juice, but an actual like cordial, was impossible, wasn't it?
I remember drinks being like the most difficult thing.
Yeah.
That weekend.
And I can remember one night you was groaning in the middle of the night because she was in a lot of pain. Yeah, you did. You woke me and you was groaning because she was in agony. And then we come home the following day, didn't we? We did a bit of shopping in the morning and we come home. And I think it was, I'd booked the rest of the week off. Not the day we arrived back, the day after. Dad was off as well. And it's like, let's get out and do something. I think it was really nice weather. You couldn't even get out of bed. And I think that was my first realisation that this isn't just about the tummy, you know, the fatigue that comes with it, the exhaustion. And you couldn't. We went out without you. You just wanted to stay in bed all day. You just couldn't get out of bed. You were so exhausted. The fatigue, it's something that I'd never, certainly not experienced myself, but even had experience of exposure to. Fatigue and being tired are really different. Yeah. And I had no idea of that before.
I guess, what is that like to see?
It's sad. It's really sad. I mean, it's, you know, okay, well, maybe we'll try tomorrow then, see how you're feeling tomorrow. And yeah, it's incredibly sad that you got a beautiful sunny day, a 16, nearly 17-year-old daughter that can't get out of bed because she's had a 2-night vacation. And actually we weren't out late on either night.
You didn't do much.
No. Yeah, she's not fit for nothing. And it's just like, that's really sad. Really sad. And the impact as well of the impact just normal life can have on your body.
And what would you say to other family members, loved ones, boyfriends, girlfriends, when you're seeing someone you care about in that sort of stay there, or what in that moment would you have wanted to know, or is there nothing that you can say? Or...
I don't think there is really. I mean, everybody's different, aren't they? Like, every person suffers from any chronic condition that's going to cause that level of fatigue is different, and those family members, friends, whatever, are different. So we would all deal with it very, very differently, wouldn't we? And I don't think, when you just want to be in bed to sleep, because that's actually all you physically can do at that point in time, you're not going to want people sitting downstairs just waiting for you, because that's just going to make you feel worse. And there's really nothing you can do, to be honest, to change how you feel and to improve that fatigue. There just isn't. So I guess it's frustrating all round, really, because it's like, it's a shame, we've gone out without you now, and that's not how this week was supposed to be. But you just have to learn to accept that sort of stuff, really.
Yeah. One moment of that period that stands out to me is when we went to Westfield. It was... And that, I think, was mental health mixed in with...
I think it was, because we'd done Prague in April, and I think this was probably June, a little bit more summertime. So I think, maybe your mental health has started to be impacted by that point, which is no surprise, really.
And we didn't really have the understanding of mental health as a family that we do now.
Oh God, no, not at all. God, Jesus, I learned so much over the last few years.
I think in the end we went to M&S, like we did this year when we went grad shopping. We went to M&S and we just got like some chicken and stuff, but I did have a panic attack.
You did?
Outside the toilet.
Yes.
And it might not be a stand-up moment for you, but I think because it's for me, I just want to know, what is that like when you've planned, and you can be as honest with me as you want, you've planned this day out, you've taken your daughter out, you're going to do a lovely shopping day, and because she hasn't eaten anything because she said she's going to poo, and now we're trying to find somewhere to eat, we can't find anywhere to eat because actually accessibility to food is so difficult for me when I'm on a low fibre diet.
Yeah.
She's now having a panic attack outside the toilet. What is that experience like for you?
So my memory of that day is I felt like I contributed to that panic attack.
Okay.
Because I felt like I was trying to force you into eating, because I think because you can get hangry.
It makes me more anxious if I don't eat.
Yeah, and I think this is what was in my head. So I was being quite pushy with you having to eat something. And I think that's why you ended up spiraling. But going out for a day and not being able to fulfill the day as planned, yes, it's shit. It is shit. But again, I guess you just learn to accept that's how. But that was all very new then, so I would view it. To be fair, we plan, don't we, differently now, but I guess we were very much still learning then, and you were learning. You were learning how your body would react to certain things, and probably didn't have the confidence to know that then.
We were learning together, I think, and we were also, I think, learning how to support each other. Because I think now, and it's not a conscious thought I have, but I think now we kind of automatically know what the other person needs in terms of, even with things like days out and things like that. Like, I know that you like to have a meal or go out for coffee or something like that.
Yeah, food and drink is really important to me.
And obviously
it is.
And that's not necessarily easy for me when I'm at a fair. But actually, it's learning that, like, I can't just be selfish and go, well, no, we're not going anywhere because I can't find anything. It's about...
But likewise, it's a compromise, isn't it?
Exactly. And I think over time you learn how to manage that. What do you need to maybe do differently now? Or do you think it's
just plan differently, don't you? You do plan differently. I mean, like you said, when we went to look for your dress for graduation, you obviously was really quite poorly then, and you, like, prior to going was like, I'm really sorry, I'm not going to be able to, like, don't know where I'm going to be able to eat, or we knew the weather was going to be okay, so it was like, well, just go to M&S, we can get some pre-packed chicken, some melon, and I can get something nice, and we can just sit and people watch. And that's exactly what we did do, and it was fine, it was absolutely fine. But then, of course, because you wasn't very well, you're tired a lot quicker, so the day's a lot shorter. But again, that's fine. It is what it is at the end of the day. Do you know what? It's 11 days out.
Does it make you sad that we can't go?
Yeah, I think there's always that element, isn't there? I think with probably more for you than for me, because it's your life ultimately that's impacted. For me, what's impacted is all the nice things, not the essential, necessary things. Yes, you have to count your blessings, but for anybody that's diagnosed with any sort of chronic, lifelong illness, I think there's always going to be an element of grief of the life that you were going to have.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean your life would have been like that, but the ideal, the perception you had in your mind, what your life was going to look like. I think you're always going to grieve that.
And as a parent, because you and Dad have never, or I've never felt pushed into any sort of career option or anything, any expectation, but you must grieve too as parents.
Yeah, I do think you do. I don't. Do you know what? And this is all really, really cliche, isn't it? As long as your kids are happy. Yes, ultimately, as long as your kids are happy. But also, yes, we do all have to earn a living. We do all have to support ourselves at some point in our lives. I think I was never massively pushed by my parents. I say massively pushed. I wasn't pushed by my parents at all. And I don't think Dad was either. I think for both of us, our parents, it's obviously a different generation, but it's just like you go out and you earn a living, do whatever. It was no, and I think, you know, we learn a lot from our parents, and so therefore I don't think I've ever been that big pushy parent in that way. I think I can see that ultimately you have a really good work ethic, but also it's kind of not really gone in your favour this last year. It's been difficult to find a job, and I know you have ambition, and I hope one day you fulfil those ambitions, but I think it would be really wrong if I was like cracking the whip, you have to go and earn money, because you've been really, really poorly. And I guess it would be different if our financial situation was different.
Yeah.
You know, if it was different for me as a child, there was no option. I you know, if I wanted anything, I had to earn the money to get it, and that was right from a really early age. We're able to support, so isn't that what mums and dads are supposed to do?
I don't know if it's what they're supposed to do, but it's how you and Dad parent, definitely.
Yeah.
Which makes it a lot easier.
I mean, do you know, if you was 35, I'd be freaking questioning it. But you've only just come out of uni, so, you know, I can suffer it for a bit longer, I think.
Coming down for like TV every night. Coming home.
Yeah, if you're still doing that at 35, I will be questioning it. Not gonna lie.
So the appointment, going back to that, the appointment was going to be like 5-6 months away from my referral. We found that out. It was horrendous.
You was devastated.
It was heartbreaking. Come to terms with that, we went to Prague. We did little bits.
We kind of had to get on with your life.
I carried on working, carried on at school. School were incredible.
Yeah, they were.
But the appointment managed to get pushed forward. Now, I think as I've got older, I've become more aware of, even with school, how much communication you had behind the scenes.
Oh yeah, it was an absolute pain in the arse to everybody. Absolutely.
Obviously, I don't know anything about really.
Yeah, so I think, you know, again, there was little I could do to help you physically. So I think the things I could do was making sure school were very aware of this situation, how poorly it was making you, and obviously, like, you know, the urgency of going to the toilet and stuff. So they were really good and said that you could use
I had access to all the toilets.
Yeah. So you could use
all
whatever
the
toilet you
yeah,
wanted,
they
just
were
to give you
incredible.
privacy and stuff like that. And then obviously the length of time that for an urgent referral before you even see anybody was going to be 6 months. And there was just no way, 5 months, 6 months, something like that. There was just no way that I was going to accept that as...
I think it's also important to say though that waiting times have nearly tripled.
Oh yeah,
since COVID. So,
I mean, I feel so grateful, which is bloody ridiculous, but I do feel so grateful that actually you got poorly in 2019 and not 2020. Because I dread to think. Yeah, I dread to think.
Horrendous. And
pre-COVID rather than post-COVID. Yeah.
Because we thought that was a long time.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for us, it got cut even shorter. You know, I hear horror stories now of people being referred urgently and they're still waiting over a year. And I just can't imagine. I don't think any of us could, and it honestly breaks my heart. Looking back now, we can say how lucky I was to have only had that waiting time. Mm-hmm. But when we were in it, it was hell.
Yeah. Obviously, I contacted our GP and various emails with them. And I think I'm fairly certain they improved upon it, but it was only by like a couple of weeks or something. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I went back again and this isn't good enough. You know, this is going on, that's going on. I'm not quite sure, you know, what that's going to look like if we have to wait that long just for an appointment. And then I think I got a phone call. Did I get an email at work? Can't remember. One or the other, to say that you had an appointment in, was it the June or July?
I think it's the June.
June. So literally it had gone from 5 months to about 7 or 8 weeks.
Yeah.
Something like that. And then literally once that appointment started, it just felt like you had an appointment every other day. It was incredible, wasn't it? It was incredible.
Yeah, it was amazing. I remember the phone call. I literally remember where I was, like, so clearly. It was so, like, just relief. I just felt...
You did cry.
I did cry. I just felt completely... just relieved. There's no other way I can explain it other than just pure relief.
Somebody's going to listen to me and help me.
And that's because of you that I had that appointment then. That is because of you. Because it wouldn't have moved forward.
No, it wouldn't. It wouldn't have.
I would have had an appointment.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't have been when
as quick as it was.
Got the appointment. Me, you and Dad went, didn't we?
When we went first to see Dr. Carter, yeah.
We all went. And then... it was, we had the appointment.
Got referred for colonoscopy. Yeah, loads of blood tests. I mean, just blood tests all the time, it felt like. But yeah, your colonoscopy. So we had that, and I took you, and then they just took you off. So that was weird, but you seemed okay with it. But I think there was some funny moments about that day. And they seem really silly now, but there were some funny moments. So the consultant that was doing it, his name was Dr. Warburton. He was like, why is everything about food?
Yeah, because you're like starving. You can't eat for days. Just like, oh.
And then they took you off and you had it. And then they said to come back at like a certain time. I just went and had a coffee. And then a nurse came out and I was like, you need to come through. She's so upset. Like, what fun, I'm laughing because
It is funny.
It is funny.
It is so funny.
And I walk through. I don't even know why I'm crying because I'm not even sad.
I was like, just like a
hysterical.
I was like a woman who's had too many bottles of rosé. That's the only way I can explain it.
And you was laughing and you was crying and you was laughing and you was crying. It was just really, really funny.
I've got videos of like
You have.
just me, like, because I also link my YouTube channel because they're very old videos now. Obviously, and I'm very, very young in them, but I documented the whole thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I remember the biscuits. They just dumped the whole box of biscuits in front of me, and I was just like, Mum's like, don't eat too many, you'll poo. Don't eat too many, you'll poo.
Yeah, for so long you've been watching every morsel you put in your mouth, and suddenly you're just like, Cookie Monster.
And then I remember once I'd kind of calmed down, and they realised that like I was okay to leave. We went into a side room, didn't we?
Yeah. So we went and spoke with Dr. Warburton,
Mm-hmm.
and he explained that your colon was inflamed, like literally from right through.
Yeah, as much as they could see on.
I think there was 2 points it wasn't.
Yeah.
From that point on, you were going to be put on steroids, and yeah, that's when the medication started. But he also stated that your liver function was incredibly high, and whilst like when you've got inflammation and stuff in your body, your liver function can be quite high. This was incredibly high.
Yeah.
And he also stated that when you have one autoimmune disease, it's not uncommon to have another. And he was really concerned that you had autoimmune hepatitis, and that the only way that they could check that for sure was to do a liver biopsy while you was awake.
Quickly before we go on to that, what it was obviously we're laughing like because it is quite that whole situation was funny, but what is it like sending your newly 17-year-old in for a colonoscopy, which is essentially just a man shoving a massive tube?
I know. I can remember. I think I probably did say it to somebody, but it just doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right on any level. It felt like, what's the word I'm looking for?
Inappropriate?
No, not inappropriate. I mean, obviously it is inappropriate. There's nothing appropriate about that at all. Yeah, like violation. That's the word I'm looking for. I almost felt like you was being violated a little bit.
When I look back, I think like
you were so brave about it though.
Yeah, as
so brave.
A 16, 17-year-old, I'm like, the fact that I just did it all and I was just so okay about it. And
I think that's helped as well, because like on days like that where you've had stuff like that done, and the fact I think even like now you're so okay with going to appointments by yourself. And like obviously I've been to a couple with you recently, which is quite unusual now, but you're just so like articulate in your appointment and so grown up. And I know you're 21 but in those sorts of situations where, you know, mum's always looked after the daughter, I don't need to do that because you're so capable of doing it for yourself.
It makes it easier for you.
It makes it so much easier.
I've never gone into appointments kicking and screaming or...
No. I can't do it. I'm too nervous. Or you've literally just got on with it.
So he said that he took biopsies. It gave me loads and loads of steroids, which I started taking.
Yeah.
I got the steroids a bit later on. So we had a few more different appointments, and then we had a week.
Oh my god, that week.
And this week was like appointment after appointment after appointment. It was MRI, liver biopsy, and consultant appointment.
Yeah, and I think you had some blood tests as well. Yeah, that week was full on. Every other day we were there, wasn't we? Because obviously the liver biopsy, you couldn't do that on your own.
So should we go through the liver biopsy?
When Dr. Warburton said that there's a potential that you have autoimmune hepatitis, that I really struggled with.
Okay.
Because I think I kind of got my head around the Crohn's thing. Because it had been since February, we're now in like July, I guess. So it'd been a while, and I think that's the other thing. There's so much information out there about Crohn's. So when we got home from hospital that day, everyone was still a little bit spaced out. We went to Simmons and got a chicken sandwich or something. Kira come round.
Yeah.
And while you and Kira sat chatting, I was looking up what does autoimmune hepatitis actually mean. And there's very little information about it. And I think that's why I struggled to deal with it, because I couldn't find. And everything I did find was, I mean, not that stuff about Crohn's is really positive, but so negative. Yeah, it just felt like I'd been hit again, and it was just like, I really did struggle with that. And then I remember you had to sign to say that you were okay, that you might die.
Yeah, I found that really hard.
I found that really hard. Every operation that anybody has, we have to do that, but you were just 17 and you were having to sign to say, and it was really high as well, that your chance of dying it felt high. I can't remember what it was now, but it felt, that's a really high chance that you're going to die, and you're kind of signing, they're encouraging you to sign that, to say that, yeah, I'm okay, take a bit of my liver, it's absolutely fine. Yeah, so that I found really difficult. And then obviously the day of the liver biopsy, I don't think we really knew what to expect. Not really.
None of us did.
I think they told us what would happen, but yeah, it was very odd. I mean, obviously I was grateful, as I'm sure you were, that they let me go in with you.
Yeah.
And then we go into this room, and bearing in mind that, you know, you were going to be awake. So no anaesthetist required. It was like an operating theatre. There was 8-9 people in there.
There was a lot of people.
A lot of medical professionals in there.
Because it was something that they don't do often. I think they used it almost as training.
So many people in that room, and so it was quite overwhelming. There was music playing. It was a lot, wasn't it? Lots of lights, because obviously it needs to be. Lots of machinery, lots of bodies, lots of noise, lots of sound. It felt a lot. So they were really keen. Because I was holding your hand, and they obviously injected you to numb you, but probably didn't wait long enough.
In the room, I'm laying on the bed, and they've injected me with
numbing something.
Numbing, but he was very, very quick.
Very, very quick. You really screamed and you cried because it hurt.
Yeah, so I screamed and really cried.
Yeah, but obviously I guess it was never going to be very pleasant, but I didn't kind of realise at that time you wasn't quite numb enough for them to be shoving really long scissors in your side to cut away your little bit of liver that they needed to check. So yeah, you found it quite a traumatic experience.
How did you find it?
Obviously it wasn't nice, but I just feel, I don't know, I feel like with everything, colonoscopy, like I said, I found that that was like almost a violation of you, but nonetheless these things need to be done, don't they? So it doesn't, it's almost like it doesn't really matter how I feel about it. So then I think I guess choose to not feel too much about it, because it doesn't help the situation if I were to.
You put your feelings aside.
Yeah, and I don't do it in a conscious way. I really don't. It's just
probably self-protection as well, though, Mum.
It probably is a little bit of that, yeah. A bit of sort of self-preservation.
You comfortable? Like a frog. Honestly. Oh, don't annoy him, because he's just going to go under the bed. Please don't annoy him.
It's so hard not to.
The MRI kind of didn't really, there was no point doing that, and so because they made a mistake for that one. Fast forward, the biopsies of everything come back. We had our last appointment with Dr. Carter.
Yep.
And he told us, you have Crohn's disease.
You have Crohn's, yeah.
What, in that moment, the moments afterwards, what's kind of going through your head?
I think even that was a little bit weird, because all along we had all been kind of, in our heads, it was colitis. Neither are nice.
No.
They're similar in lots of ways, but obviously do have differences. So when he said it was Crohn's, I mean, to be fair, he might have confirmed it was colitis and I would have still felt the same. Still feel like you're being hit, like something hitting you, just like that woof moment. Yeah, actually only thinking about it now. So then I thought it was because, we thought it was colitis, but it's Crohn's. But I probably would have felt the same, getting that confirmation. Whether it was Crohn's or colitis, I think I would have, in that moment, felt, really, it's a weird feeling because it's like you want answers. Of course you do, because when you've got answers, it's easier to manage. You know what you're dealing with to a point, because obviously it is all very unpredictable. It's a weird feeling because you don't want anyone you love to be diagnosed with anything so shitty. Also a relief to know that it is that.
Yeah.
So yeah, a bit like that really. Didn't we go out for dinner?
We went to the Harvester.
To celebrate!
I announced in the family group chat. I'm like, by the way, I've just got my diagnosis.
So I guess that just
I think
kind of tells you how weird that whole thing is, because you couldn't eat.
Sure what to do.
You couldn't.
I could eat at that point because I was on steroids.
You're on steroids now, so I guess that was a celebration.
I was on steroids at that point.
I think, yeah, it was a relief. So it's kind of like, let's just go out for dinner.
And yeah, I announced in the family group chat, and everyone was really sad, and I was just like, no, it's like fine.
We're okay with it. We've got an answer.
When you say like being hit by something, is there?
I don't know how to explain
it.
No,
I agree. It's a really difficult thing to explain. Is there any sort of things you can use to describe it, or that it's that impossible to describe? Because I struggle to describe it.
And I guess there is a sense of relief because it's been given a name. It's got a name now. It's a confirmed name. So there is a sense of relief. I know it's a weird one because obviously by that point I understood it's chronic. You know, there is no cure and this is going to be part of your life forever. But also, whilst without that confirmation, we kind of knew and known for a few months.
We've managed to get our heads around it
Yeah.
a little bit. Do you think me being 16 going through it all made any difference to how you feel? And I guess I can ask you that now because I've been going through, obviously we have the diagnosis which makes it slightly different, but I've been going through lots of things to do with my illness this year. And I'm quite a bit older. There's kind of, you have no responsibility now, whereas I guess in the beginning,
yeah, you have that responsibility now, whereas
there was probably more responsibility.
Yeah.
And is that easier? Is that more difficult?
I think, do you know what? I think in some respects, being only 16 is awful, but depending on what it is within the NHS, you can still be considered a child. So I could shout and fight your corner more. Whereas if you were perhaps 21 and just experiencing those symptoms, you would have to do that for yourself. So as much as I couldn't change what was happening, as in with you physically, because of your age, I still had some power to make a difference. Whereas I have no influence over your healthcare now.
Yeah.
So, and I've never thought about that actually until just now. So I think in some respects,
it was easier
for me, like, to feel like I was doing something. It was better that it was at 16.
Yeah.
Because I could still play my part in helping it.
You could still feel like you was doing something to help me in a position where you can't do anything to help me.
Yeah.
The next big thing before remission was steroids.
Yeah.
How was that for you to go through? Like,
I just wanted you better, I think. So I never really gave a huge amount of consideration then as to what that medication meant.
Was you aware at the time how much steroids impacted?
No idea.
Because I don't even think I did until I look back.
I think I was kind of aware that steroids could give you a fatter face, a rounder face, that they made you really hungry. But again, I think I just wanted you better. I wanted the Erin that we had the year before back, which was never going to happen.
I was about to say, do you think that's ever come back?
No, and I don't know how it could, to be honest, because you've had so much to deal with. I mean, obviously not just your physical health, but you've had so much to deal with that it does change you forever.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in most respects that's always for the better. Well, it certainly has been for you, and I think it could change people for the worse, I'm sure, but I guess it depends on their mentality.
Lots of things as well, because I think I've been very fortunate to have lots and lots of support, lots and lots of love. I've been given the environment to grow positively from it, you know.
Yeah, so I was never going to get that Erin back, but no, I just wanted you better. Physically, I just wanted you better, and I didn't at that stage consider at what cost that would be.
And I guess as well, for me, a lot of the steroids, it just impacted me, like the moon face and stuff like that. Like, as far as I know, you don't care what I look like.
No, and I didn't even see it.
But obviously now looking
ridiculous.
back, it was insane.
Yeah.
The next thing would be my mental health after steroids.
Yeah.
Was you aware that it was because of what had happened that year?
I mean, obviously steroids have like quite an impact on how you look physically, albeit I didn't at that time see. I mean, I look at the photos now, like, how the hell did you not see that? I must have been walking around with my eyes shut, but hey ho. Yeah, so, and then when you started to get poorly mentally, like the Christmas you come home from uni, so that first Christmas after starting uni, and you was weighing everything and like this control over your food, that's when I first noticed it.
So you didn't notice it during COVID?
That was during COVID, not during lockdown.
Oh, okay, because that's when I'm talking about, with like my fear of going outside.
No, because you didn't have to go outside. You was told not to go outside. You was told not to go outside, so I just thought you was like really following the rules.
Yeah, you didn't realise it was anxiety.
That's what the government had said. That because you're immunosuppressed, you shouldn't leave the house.
How was that actually for you? With like me having to follow the rules so strictly during COVID?
Well, it wasn't like we were going out, was it? So it didn't.
Yeah, it was just.
So I think the whole COVID situation probably masked
a lot of it,
because I didn't know that.
And I don't even think I really had an awareness of how bad it was during COVID.
But yeah, I think probably the first time I noticed
the Christmas I come home from.
Your
to 2020.
Yeah.
I was in remission, and I guess we were probably distracted from Crohn's because of my mental health.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think that's probably, mental health is a whole podcast in itself.
Yeah,
it
would be.
That would be a whole podcast in itself. I then become quite mentally unwell, but then I'm in therapy, I'm getting mentally well again.
Yeah.
Finished therapy this year.
Yeah.
And I flare again. What is it like for you? Because I was in York as well. What is it like for you when you get that like text or phone call? I can't remember how I told you that I'm passing blood again.
My heart absolutely sinks. It really does. It sinks for you. I think it sinks for just life in general, because it does impact. And that sounds really selfish, but it does. My heart just absolutely sinks whenever I get any of those sorts of calls to say I'm bleeding or I'm this or I'm that. It's a roller coaster, isn't it, at the end of the day? And it's like, here we go again. It's such an unpredictable illness, and it could, that could rectify itself. We've had it in the past, haven't we, where you've just been really careful about what food you eat, avoiding fibre, and actually you kind of worked your way out of it. So you hope that that's what's going to happen. You hope with making the necessary adjustments, it won't go into some crazy long flare, and it'll only last like a couple of weeks, and then you can gradually start reintroducing fibre and stuff like that. But that wasn't the case this time.
No. So then I get told, after a few months of like figuring things out, in June, I start injecting myself.
Again, I think it goes back to that whole thing, is I just want you better. So just let's try it. I'm not sure how I would be about injecting myself. And then obviously you was apprehensive about it, but you did it. So yeah, I think you're incredibly brave. I don't think I could do it.
Thank you. I think it's different when you have to.
Yeah, I'm sure
I think it is different when you have to, because
Yeah.
I would probably say the same.
So then, yeah, you new drugs. You're hopeful. You've got hope again, haven't you?
And they initially started to work,
Yeah.
so that's quite like, I guess that's a good thing. It's quite exciting.
Mm-hmm.
And then they stopped working.
Mm-hmm. You had an appointment scheduled with your nurse anyway, didn't you? Not because of this, not because of going into a flare. It was just a routine appointment you was having anyway. And as I've already said, you do everything on your own, your appointments and everything. You just get on with it. But I wanted to go with you because I think I kind of needed to hear what the next steps would be, because obviously we all know Crohn's and colitis can often result in surgery to different levels. But when does that happen? At what point is that needed? I think I just needed to hear from myself that, you know, your hours of fibrin stopped working. You've then been given these injections, initially positive, but they're now not working. So what is next? And I weren't going to that appointment because I felt that you're perhaps not asking the right questions or anything like that. It really was. I just needed to hear from myself. So we got told then, didn't we, that there was this or this. I won't even try and say the names because
Vedolizumab and I don't know how to pronounce the other one.
Yeah, I haven't got hope in hell then, have I really? But that you were to continue with the injections until Christmas, but weekly.
So that's adalimumab.
Yeah, weekly instead of bi-weekly.
So I continued to get worse.
Yeah.
What is it like for you like the last few months?
It's horrible. I mean, it is quite consuming. I mean, obviously I have a lot going on in my life. I think often that is a really useful escape, because I think if I was working at home, as a lot of people do now, and I was with you a lot more, it would completely consume me. I think you are well adept with dealing with your illness and really probably do only properly reach out to me when you really, really need me, because generally you do just get on with it. I think, if I was in that situation, I think the last thing I would want to do is like weigh everybody else down with it, and I'm sure that's probably how you feel.
Because you're doing that without even trying anyway.
Yeah.
There's a burden that comes with a diet for everybody, not even just like unintentionally. Because people care about you.
Yeah.
It becomes part of their life, even if it's just for a few minutes a day.
Yeah.
So it does spill out onto the wider circle. So as much as I can limit that outspill, I will.
Yeah. And I get that, and I think that's why I probably can escape it now differently to probably when you was waiting a diagnosis and stuff.
Have you found this flare easier?
I don't think I'll ever find them easy. I don't think they'll ever be easy. And I think like this week,
it's been really bad this week.
Yeah, it's kind really of all come to a head a little bit, hasn't it? And yeah, that has consumed my week. And I'm not saying that to make you feel bad, but it has.
And what do you mean by consume?
Because you worry, don't you? Is this its peak for this flare? Is it gonna go further? Obviously you got prescribed prednisolone, and for about a 12-hour period. I don't know if I'm going to take it, and that's your choice ultimately. And I said that to you. They prescribed it. That doesn't mean you have to take it. No. You still have that.
I think in the back of my head, I always knew I was going to take it, but I think for me to be okay about taking it, I had to decide Even though I wasn't deciding,
I get that.
I had to say,
Yeah.
this is my choice that I'm making, because
Totally get that.
then I can then
Then I said to you,
take
didn't I?
accountability for that, and I find that a lot easier than just being forced things, you know?
Yeah. And I said that to you, didn't I? At the end of the day, it's your choice. But as your mum, my concern would be that you got worse, and therefore perhaps the length of time you have to take it for would increase, or worse. But ultimately, it would have stood by you whatever you decided, because it's your body at the end of the day.
I've only had one infusion. I've got another on Wednesday. Obviously, we found out, like, we went to see my consultant of an emergency appointment. Was that nerve-wracking for you that it was an emergency, or no?
No. I know what you're going through.
Yeah.
And there's questions that need answers. Something has to change. You can't carry on as you are.
So it's better to
So actually, getting an emergency appointment is almost like winning the lottery.
Yeah, it does feel like that.
It's like, brilliant, they're doing something about it.
He then says, go on vedolizumab, and these are infusions, for now anyway. When you saw, like, the picture of me hooked up to the machine and, like, found out I was in there, what is that like for you, seeing that?
Yeah, I mean, it's not nice. I mean, obviously I knew you were going, and I knew you'd be hooked up to a machine. But yeah, when you sent me the photo, it was a little bit like, oh, it's shit.
Yeah.
It's shit. You shouldn't be going through this. But you have to, don't you? It's you they're the, and I go, and you use this saying a lot, and I do go back to it. They are the cards you've been dealt. Not what you asked for, but it's what you've got, so you have to deal with it. No different to me being your mum, having to watch you go through all that crap.
Yeah, they're the cards you've been dealt as being my mum.
And actually, it impacts your life way more than it does mine. Yes, it impacts my life, because obviously I worry about you, and, you know, when you're having complete breakdowns because they're putting you back on pred, it's just really heartbreaking. It's really heartbreaking. But it's also part of being a mum, or a parent even, not just a mum, but a parent.
This week, the biggest thing with my flare has been kind of the pain. So I've been put back on prednisolone, which I'd said I'd never wanted to go back on, but I'm back on it. And fortunately for now, I don't think my symptoms are very, very manageable.
They seem a lot less.
We're in early stages. Yeah. I'm on a lower dose than what I was on the first time around taking it. So I think I'm feeling a lot more positive about that. I guess seeing me so upset at the thought of taking it is probably quite difficult. But I think the thing that's kind of consumed this week has been the pain, which hasn't been something we've really yet experienced with this flare.
No, not since she was very first poorly.
Do you find that harder to deal with? Because I guess when I'm running to and from the toilet, you don't know what goes on when I'm in the bathroom. I can shut the door and nobody needs to know, like, what it's like, because that would just be inappropriate.
It would be inappropriate.
Like, come on, watch me poo blood. Like, it would just be inappropriate.
I'm okay.
But obviously with the pain, I can't, when it's as bad as it's been this week, I can't hide that.
It is hard. It's one particular occasion this week I felt frustrated with it because we didn't have the right pain relief in the house, and it's like, we should never let that happen.
Yeah.
Even when you're not in a flare, we should never let that happen. And for one reason or another, it did. And
I think it was the Christmas period.
Yeah, and then that's just incredibly frustrating because you're then at a loss as to, you know,
there's nothing you can do.
Yeah, and there was no. So then I'm in bed, like, I don't even know what the time was or even what day it was now, but are there any pharmacies open? Where's the nearest pharmacy so I can get in the car and go and get it for you? It's hard seeing you in so much pain. I think it was probably worse first time round, because I think first time round, the pain, the most painful time was when they said you had a virus.
Oh yeah, I've never experienced. I can't even remember it. You've got notes on your phone, don't you?
I can remember sitting with you and breathing with you as though you was in labour, like that, making sure you took the big breaths, the in and the out, the inhaling, the exhaling. just to try and get you through those periods of really, really, really bad
And
pain.
I was on codeine as well.
Codeine as well, yeah. So I don't think it was as bad as
Oh no,
them.
it definitely wasn't. Definitely wasn't.
And obviously, again, you're that bit older, and you kind of manage your pain yourself.
And I guess, yeah, it's different, isn't it? Like, I'm an adult now.
Yeah, you are an adult
And
now.
we know what it is. Like, we're not...
I hate the fact that you take so much medication, though. It's ridiculous the amount of meds you're on at the moment.
Yeah.
But you need it. So...
Is that weird? Like, or does it feel normal now? Like
Normal.
the meds? Was it weird to start off with?
No, I don't think so. I don't think it was weird. Which maybe is a little weird that it wasn't, but it wasn't weird.
It's just like, it needs to be done, so we're going to do it.
Yeah.
Because I sometimes, like, I don't think about it a lot, but the other day I, like, laid out all my meds and I looked at it, I'm like, it's my life.
Yeah.
And not that it bothers me. Like, I think for somebody who is quite woo-woo and hippie and, you know, I don't... Normally, when I'm not in the flare and I'm in remission, I hate taking drugs unless they are for Crohn's.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy to take drugs for my Crohn's, and I'm very supportive of medication in that sense.
Modern day meds.
I find it like, I do sometimes, it like every now and then it will hit me. I'm like there was a moment when I was in the infusion where I was just like, my life. But then it's normal very quickly.
Yeah.
It's normal again. How are you feeling now? Like, in terms of my illness and how you are with it all.
I guess I have to be okay with it all.
You don't have to.
But what's the alternative?
Not being okay with it.
And what good's that going to do? Doesn't help anything.
No.
So I think being accepting of it, so okay is probably the wrong word. Being accepting of it is probably the right word. I haven't got a choice but to be accepting of it. Like you haven't either, really. And I think if you don't or can't accept your cards, then you're going to make life more difficult for yourself. With regards to where I am now with it, I just hope and pray the infusions work for you.
Yeah.
Because if they don't, I don't really know what that means now.
More biologics.
Yeah.
And I will just run through the biologics until
they're exhausted.
And then it'll be a stoma.
Yeah.
How do you think, I guess it's hard to say, isn't it, how that would be? Because right now that seems scary and hard, but then if you'd have told me in 2019 I was having to inject myself weekly, that would have been scary and hard.
And you know, again, I think when you was first poorly, and I was obsessed about reading about Crohn's and colitis, and obviously by doing that and reading different case studies on different platforms, lots of people with Crohn's and colitis end up with a stoma, so it's quite a normal thing. But what I did learn to understand was that they've been through hell before that happens. I mean, hell, their life is completely stripped away from them. So actually having the stoma gives them their life back.
Yeah.
And I think that makes it so much more accepting for people. And
it's still a big decision, but it makes that big decision a little more easier.
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, is that something I choose for you? Absolutely bloody not. But if it meant you could live your life freely...
Yeah. Who cares?
Yeah.
It's kind of one big question which we may have touched upon. Like, what has been like the main standout hardest thing about being a loved one of somebody with a chronic illness?
I think it's always going to be hard seeing somebody you love in pain. I think, and again, going back to you, I think you make it so much easier for us because you do just deal with it and get on with it. Do you know what, Erin? I do think it is just a case of being accepting of the situation.
But if somebody's watching this and they're in the early stages, what would you say to them to help them get here?
What if they were the patient or the relative?
The relative.
I can only go by what's worked for me, and that is understanding it.
Yeah.
It is understanding it and reading as much as I can about it, which has been scary at times because there's some hellish stories out there.
Mm-hmm.
I think the other thing is as well is championing your person.
Yeah.
Because it's very easy to be fobbed off. And I think, to be honest, right back in the early days when I was pushing for your appointments to be quicker than that they were, I read so many horror stories about young girls that were ill and were being treated for anorexia because they'd lost so much weight, and they must be not eating, or they must be bulimic, and that's what they were being treated for by doctors. And I think it's that, isn't it? Don't allow yourself to be
an
fobbed
advocate
off
for that person.
Yeah,
as much as you
absolutely.
can.
Yeah.
And I think as well, time, we're 4 years in now? 5 years in this year. And there was a period, I think, even with Dad, with the three of us, we were just in almost, I felt like we were just all like robots. That is how it felt.
You go through the motions, don't you?
At the start. But
I think you have to disconnect yourself from it, because otherwise it would tip you over the edge a little bit, I think.
Yeah, but we are, I think, if we're talking about this in a way and you're like, how are they so accepting of it? We're so far in. You do just become, I think, accepting of it because you don't really have a choice but to be. It doesn't make all the days easy. There's some days this week, even just this week, there are days, even in a day, you can have a high and a massive low. But it's kind of almost just accepting that it's a roller coaster as well, I think, helps.
Yeah, and
it definitely is.
I think more than when you were diagnosed, this year has been that. It's been very much a roller coaster.
Last year.
Because it's like, oh, this is happening, and oh, actually I feel a little bit better.
And then
this is happening, and it's like, oh, let's try this medication. Oh, that's working. And no, it's not. And it's just that been constant for the last 9 months.
But I think that's I'm grateful for that, because it's given me an appreciation that I didn't have before. Because as a thioprin worked instantly and so well for so many years, I've been able to experience what it's actually like to not have medication work. And I think it's really important for me to do that. I think it's not been nice, but I think for me, in growing and understanding and learning about this illness and other people's experiences, it's been very, very important. And I think I could say that for all of us.
Yeah.
We hadn't experienced that before.
Yeah, I mean, I think in my head I always understood that as a thioprin wouldn't work forever. Kind of has a bit of a shelf life. I don't know why. I must have read it somewhere.
It's quite common for your body to form antibodies towards the medication you're on.
Yeah. When you're not having to deal with it, it's very easy to not think about it.
It's whether you're prepared for, and it come out the blue. Are there any good things about me having Crohn's, being diagnosed with Crohn's, the Crohn's journey? Has it taught you anything that isn't just like medical jargon that we now are quite?
I think there are always silver linings to everything in life. It's really difficult because I do think it's changed who you are, but I don't know who you would have been. So that's a bit contradictory, I know, but
I know what you mean though.
You always was very interested in the social media platform. It's allowed you to do the most incredible things with that. I think more recently. I don't watch your TikToks every day.
There's a lot of them.
I watch them periodically. But yeah, I see the comments that are made, and obviously I'm not seeing the things that are direct messages, but the stuff that is put out there, and just how you're educating people, I think is pretty incredible. And I think if you can continue to develop that and grow that and make a difference to people, which you clearly already are, that is definitely a silver lining.
So somebody commented this on one of my TikToks, not knowing that I was making this, so it's kind of just by chance.
Okay.
Are you, as a parent, disappointed by the lack of representation? So
I think
we
disappointed is the wrong word.
We've never really, I guess, experienced that.
Yeah, I think disappointed is the wrong word. I think frustrated. That I think also, do you know what? IBDs, Crohn's, colitis, it's a big thing in my world.
Yeah.
But do you know what? There's so many other chronic health conditions, so many other autoimmune diseases that are big in other people's worlds that I don't know about. So I think disappointed is wrong, because there's so many things out there that
it's hard to have representation for everything.
Yeah, exactly. That could all have more awareness to them.
The king of distraction.
That doesn't mean I don't think it's important that people shouldn't understand Crohn's and colitis more.
Is it difficult for you, like when I was away for my graduation, I had to use a disabled loo in M&S, and there was a lady with a toddler and then like a sort of probably like a 3 or 4 year old, and they both gave me just judging looks, and I wasn't in a good place and I was tired. So I probably blew out in my head the situation, but I come to you and I was very, very upset because I felt judged.
So I wasn't there when that happened.
No.
Because it was one of those moments where you just had to run off to the toilet and it was on a different level. So then you come back and you was really, really upset. So my recollection of that was not that we should accept it, but you're possibly being slightly sensitive.
Yeah, I won't disagree.
However, that is likely to happen again. So you either have to accept that, or actually be a little bit more outspoken in the right way and explain.
Yeah.
It did start me thinking that there should be more awareness in disabled facilities like that.
Especially disabled facilities that are for parent and child as well.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. Because I think as much as there's on some, it will talk about not every disability is visible, but that doesn't tell people anything. I don't think.
I agree with you.
So I think to signpost, in these facilities, a little bit about IBDs would be a really, really good thing to do.
I think the best bit of representation we have seen on TV, and I'm speaking for both of us, is in Boiling Point.
Yeah.
With that girl. I haven't, and I would recommend anybody who's watching this, whether it's a loved one that is going through it or you're going through it yourself, you're going through IBD yourself, watch. But even if I think they've posted it on YouTube as a clip, so you don't need to watch the whole series, of one of the people on it. She's playing a girl with Crohn's and she has an accident, but the representation of it is amazing.
It is. The desperation, the panic, all of that.
Watching it, I could almost feel what she was feeling, but obviously I experienced that, but I think other people watching it could get even the little things of like, you can't see anything, you can't hear anything, you like,
it's the panic, isn't it?
Yeah, it consumes you in that moment. So we need more representation like that, of course, but it's difficult because everything needs representation, and unfortunately now there's lots of autoimmune conditions, there's lots of chronic illnesses, and it's hard to, everybody deserves representation, but
you
it's
can only
hard
fight
to
your
represent,
own battle, can't you?
Which is, I guess, why we're doing this and why I do what I do, because I want there to be that representation, but it's not my job to expect other people to do it. If I want there to be representation, unfortunately, I need to shout louder and push for that.
Yeah.
Like people have done for lots of different things in the past.
Yeah.
It's not ideal, it's not great, and I'm in a position where fortunately I haven't been actively discriminated against because of my illness, and I'm also privileged because I can hide my illness.
Yeah.
I've said that on TikTok. Like, a lot of people who are disabled in a wheelchair, they're gonna be actively discriminated against because you can see it. Whereas for me, I look healthy. That's a privilege.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's the lack of representation can be frustrating, but that's why I'm trying to make more representation and media
I
for
think
it.
it has to take people that are going through, whether it's Crohn's or whether it's a completely different autoimmune disease,
To educate and
yeah,
show.
because nobody's going to be able to educate about that better than somebody that's gone or is going through it.
Yeah, we've kind of touched on this, but what part of the diagnosis did you find the hardest?
The hardest bit was when they started talking about you having autoimmune hepatitis.
So something not even to do with Crohn's.
Yeah, crazily, yeah.
And do you think that is because you couldn't find information on it?
I think it had a lot to do with that. I couldn't understand anything about it. So yeah, you want to be able to like put that information in. But you said this because obviously you did a YouTube about your liver biopsy. There was nothing.
No.
You couldn't find anything about it when you was going for that biopsy, could you?
No. And that's my most viewed piece of content on my channel, because I think people don't find anything, so they find what I've made.
They stumble across yours. Yeah, so no, actually wasn't anything to do with diagnosis.
So what about Crohn's? What was the hardest part about that, if you take away like the liver biopsy and autoimmune hepatitis or something else?
I guess that it's lifelong. Yeah.
That it's going to be forever. What did you know about Crohn's prior?
Okay, so prior, many years ago, your auntie Jill had a friend that had Crohn's, and she, from what I remember, was always ill. And that sounds ridiculous. There's people with Crohn's are always ill, but that's all I remember. She was very tiny, like not a lot of weight on her at all, but she looked really ill. But we are talking probably 25 to 30 years ago.
Yeah, it would have looked a lot different then.
It would have looked a lot different then to what it does now, because the medications available then were a lot different to what they are now.
Has your perception of chronic illnesses, not even just Crohn's, just in general, changed since my diagnosis? And if so,
I don't think I had a perception before. I don't think I did. I don't think I ever really gave it a lot of thought as to what chronic illness looked like. But if somebody had asked me that before, I probably would have expected somebody with a chronic illness to have a very debilitated life all of the time. That was not the case.
So do you think your perception of invisible illnesses has changed?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I didn't really give it a lot of thought beforehand, but yeah.
So what do you think about now, or is that?
Oh, you can live a normal life.
Yeah.
Yes, you have those periods of time where you can't, but ultimately, yeah, you can live a normal life. Can. Doesn't mean say you will. You can.
So obviously you are an employer. You have quite a high-powered position in your career and your company.
Yeah.
Do you think your perception of people who may be ill at work, or maybe you don't have anybody that's ill at work, if you was to employ somebody who had a chronic illness, do you think your perception of what their life is like, or your empathy towards them, would be different now compared to what it was? Or because you are a very empathetic and understanding person, regardless. But
I mean, yeah, I think so. I do think I'd have more empathy towards it than maybe others would. Do you know what, as well? I think if I would be able to do that far easier if that person was honest and upfront about it. I think if they weren't, it's very easy then to make judgments about that person.
We're human, it's natural.
Yeah, so I think honest and upfront about it, for me, would help that person. I only speak for myself, I can't speak for other employers.
Did you have any advice for a parent, a loved one, or anyone who is, or even an employer, of somebody who is chronically ill and they're not very well, or they might be well at the minute, and whatever stage they are in their journey, what would you say? Or even what you would say to you back in 2019?
I think accepting it, being accepting of it, because I recall, like, back in the early days, Dad and I are having like a massive disagreement about it, because he wouldn't accept that there was something wrong with you.
Really?
Yeah. Oh God, yeah. And that's because he deals with things differently to how I deal with them. How I deal with them isn't, I'm not saying is the right way to deal with them, but I think you have to be accepting of it, because it does no good to not, and it doesn't change it. Like I say, just be an advocate for that person in your life. And if there is anything you can do, however little, support them.
But what about for you?
For me,
I don't mean how you can help that person. I mean, how can you help yourself to be okay in that situation?
I don't know. Because everyone's different, aren't they? And what worked for me was understanding everything.
Yeah, so researching, being
Yeah.
very pragmatic.
And actually being an advocate for you helped me.
Right.
So yeah, I get what you're saying, but it helped me. Just fighting your corner helped me, because you feel useful. There's nothing worse than feeling useless in a situation. It's nothing worse than that.
Did you ever speak to anybody about it?
Only like friends and I guess.
But you
colleagues.
did speak to people about what was going on.
Yeah. You know, I'm really fortunate. I work in a really nice environment, and obviously because, you know, obviously there's a person at work that's known you since birth. So I think it helps to speak to
people that are friends of the family that
know us. Yeah.
Did you find it hard, the lack of understanding? Like when people just don't understand, do you find that difficult? Or
I think the thing is, so like at work, they see me every day. My friends don't. So I think that was probably
work probably understood more than
because I see it every day. They were seeing everyone's got another appointment because Tash has just popped out, and so they see that. So unless I was going to continuously message my group of friends,
this week's schedule, and
you know, I think it was more difficult.
Yes, of course,
for them to understand than people at work.
Yeah, but I think we're also sort of people like we don't expect. You can't expect.
No,
I tried it. I expected that at the beginning. It's impossible.
Yeah,
you're asking for too much almost.
Yeah.
As you know, well, you should know, we end this podcast on 3 gratitudes.
Oh, I should know that. I did know that. I just forgot.
So, 3 gratitudes.
Do you know what? I thought about this earlier.
Did you?
I did actually think this earlier when I was sitting eating my lunch.
What you're grateful for?
And
I love that.
Not necessarily that, but when I was eating my lunch today, so we don't ever sit around the table and eat lunch.
Oh, never, ever, ever.
Today
ever.
we did. And it was all food that's still over from Christmas, but nice food. Cheese and antipasti and stuff. And yeah, there was a moment there I was very, very grateful for my life. And also that Dad didn't play golf today, so we've got to walk Albi together again. And actually for just a really peaceful Sunday.
Yeah, we've had a nice Sunday actually.
Peaceful Sunday, which doesn't always happen.
No.
It has. It's been a really lovely day.
Dad's cooking dinner. Wild. He never cooks on the weekend.
No, he doesn't. Oh, he does if we have a roast sometimes. But that's becoming less so.
My gratitudes are, I'm grateful that I feel well today, because I feel the most well I've felt in a week, I would say. I'm grateful that I can now eat crunchy food.
Crunchy food.
Like peppers and strawberries.
You had coffee today as well.
I had a coffee today. Actually, no, I'm so grateful for a coffee.
Yeah, so I'm really grateful for how many Nespresso pods we've still got in the cupboard because Erin hasn't been allowed to drink coffee.
Saved so much money on
So
Nespresso.
much money.
I haven't had a coffee for like 5 months.
Yeah, we won't run out of coffee once.
No. I'm grateful for how, this does tie into this episode, how supportive my unit is.
Mm-hmm.
Because everybody, even like, obviously right now it's just mum here, and I do think I want to say, like, please reach out to me, to support systems. Crohn's and colitis have a helpline if you are feeling alone. I always leave links down below to different charities that offer support for many different types of mental illnesses too, because I know how grateful I am just even to have my mum happily sit here with me, like, and talk about this publicly, let alone like whether we do this in private, which we do anyway. But it's not just my mum that is a support for me. Like I said, we said earlier, my best friend come round after my colonoscopy, has offered to take me, has actually run me to the hospital recently on our way out just to pick up pens to stab myself with. Dad's a great support in his own little way.
He's more of a practical support.
Yeah,
he likes
very
to help practically.
Yeah. He's more of a practical guy. My sister comes to my infusion with me. My brother texts me and checks in on me. Like, I'm very lucky to have lots of support, which I think is a privilege for us and also helps us because we've always had a village and we still have a village, and it does make hardships easier, like going through something like this, and that support has just continued throughout my whole journey.
Wow, my hip
2 hours.
I was gonna say my hip would say a couple of hours because my hip's really. You had to sign to say that you were okay, that you might die, but you were really poorly. Yeah, you called me one day to tell me that you'd poo blood. I probably did get slightly obsessed. Yeah, it just felt like I'd been hit. Yeah, I really did struggle with that.
The whole box of biscuits in front of me, and I was just like, Mum's like, don't eat too many, you'll poo, don't eat too many, you'll poo.
The Erin that we had the year before back, which was never going to happen. He wouldn't accept that there was something wrong with you.
Really?
Yeah.
What is it like when your once healthy daughter starts to poo blood overnight? When your life suddenly becomes hospital appointments and you are made to grieve what you thought would be your child's future? Today's conversation is with my mum and her experience being a parent of a chronically ill child.